Today we're introducing the idea of leadership and leadership when it comes to a team or group process. While we tend to know what leadership looks like, quote unquote, we can't really agree on what it is exactly. For this reason, leadership has a number of definitions. Researchers and practitioners alike have trouble deciding on a working definition. However, all of the different definitions do incorporate the ability to direct or influence others' behaviors and thoughts towards a productive end. Now, when we say productive end, it does not necessarily have to be a positive productive end or even a moral productive end. Unfortunately, there have been plenty of leaders leading others to both negative ends and morally reprehensible endings. So, what leadership qualities do leaders possess? Again, because we quote unquote know when we see leadership, but have trouble describing what it is, leadership qualities also differ. There is agreement, however, that a leader who can adapt their particular styles to that of the group's needs, that this helps enhance productivity as well as increase member satisfaction. There's also agreement that leaders, for the most part, hold some unique qualities. These qualities include vision, initiative, and charisma. By vision, we mean the ability to picture a new or different reality from what currently exists for the group or organization. A leader with initiative views change, adaptation, and growth as a means of group survival or as transformative, rather than as a threat to their power or stability. Finally, charisma can't be overlooked. This is the ability to generate a positive image that motivates members. Some argue that charisma is an innate quality. In other words, that you either have it or you don't. I would argue that it is difficult to cultivate, but not necessarily innate. But you do know when you're working with a charismatic leader. They're charming and they persuade with this charm. Forbes currently notes Pope Francis as the #1 charismatic leader of today. Why? He has been able to charm believers and non-believers alike, all while shaking up how the church is moving forward. In political circles, Ronald Reagan and Bill Clinton were both known to be very charming presidents. I didn't have the opportunity to meet Ronald Reagan, but I do have it on first-hand authority that Bill Clinton is absolutely charismatic. What do all these charming and charismatic leaders have in common? Excellent communication skills. They make their audience feel like they are the most important person in the room through their communication. They listen actively, all while effectively reading and exhibiting appropriate verbal and nonverbal behavior. Now, effective leaders hold themselves and the group accountable for achieving group goals and work to treat group members ethically. Effective leaders have credibility with their group, and as we have noted, effective leaders use communication techniques to inspire members towards success. But there are plenty of leaders who also use unethical tactics as well. These may include bullying or using harsh criticism, name-calling, gossip, slander, personal attacks, and threats, as well as Machiavellianism, which uses deceit, flattery, and exploitative measures in a very strategic way in order to achieve desired ends. There are, of course, other offensive behaviors that are sometimes used to keep control over a group, but we won't go into all of those today. But I do want to point out that unethical leaders may also use positive qualities for unethical purposes. So when we discussed vision and charisma earlier, well, many have used these for bad purposes or for unmoral ends. There are plenty of examples, unfortunately. When I think of someone who is charismatic and has vision, but uses it for unethical purposes, I think of cult leaders. So someone like Charles Manson, who was considered very charismatic and definitely had vision, but used it for horrible means. Let's switch gears to consider gender in leadership. What the research notes is that there is very little support that exists for the notion that men and women lead differently. However, this idea persists in popular culture. In other words, there is no current research that notes women and men approach leadership differently based on gender. But if you ask, people do believe this to be true. In reality, leadership styles are often dictated by the communication style of the person and or the organization rather than the leader's gender. So the leader's style adapts to the organization's needs or the organization's culture. In other words, what type of behavior is incentivized for the leader. So again, the stereotype of men and women having different leadership styles is still widely held, even though there isn't research to support this idea. So we're going to briefly move away from leadership to an overview of group processes, specifically the forces that shape a group's decision and affects how groups discuss and arrive at conclusions. First, cognitive forces, or group members' beliefs and thoughts. These consider how members perceive, interpret, evaluate, store, and retrieve information. Second is psychological forces. These refer to group members' emotions, attitudes, motives, and values. Then there is social forces. These are group standards for what behavior influences decision making, or what are the norms of the group. We can't cover group processes without also considering groupthink, which is at the top of your list on this page. Groupthink is a problem in which group members strive to maintain cohesiveness and minimize conflict, but they do so by refusing to critically examine ideas, analyze proposals, or test solutions. So the group essentially sacrifices moving forward and sacrifices growth and in order to maintain the status quo. Finally, still considering the group process, we will assess the problem-solving process within groups. These generally follow 6 steps. First, identifying the problem. This helps establish a clear problem that the group agrees they want to tackle and is necessary for a focused decision-making process. Otherwise, you may be moving forward, but not with any clear direction, which could considerably hamper efforts in the long run. Then the group moves to analyzing the problem. This helps determine the problem's scope and other related factors. With this information, the group can move on to generating solutions. Solution generation requires using techniques such as brainstorming and defining criteria for future solutions. It is during this stage that groupthink can creep its ugly head, especially if the group creates an environment where not everyone's ideas or not all types of ideas are respected and fully considered. After this, the group can move to evaluating and choosing solutions, or weighing the pros and cons of different options that have been proposed. It's important that the group not fall into groupthink here as well, or worse, simply choose solutions that are comfortable, or choose solutions that the leader insists will be viable. Finally, the group can implement the proposed solution or solutions. This involves actually putting into action the decision or decisions the group has made. But we're not done. The group then needs to assess the results. This is a very important step that is often overlooked at the detriment of the organization and or the group's growth and success. This step requires an evaluation of the success or effectiveness of the solution that was put into action and is needed in order to determine the group's next steps and whether such a solution can be used for similar problems in the future. Well, this is only a brief introduction. The following lectures expose you to different ideas and approaches to leadership and effective group processes. Until next time, thank you.